the topic of discussion today is token-based business model. And we have an interesting lineup of panelists here and a wonderful moderator as well. I would like to just first start the introduction with the moderator. Melanie Mohr is the founder and CEO of Mohr Protocol. She's from Berlin, Germany. Then we have Roberto Capodieci. He's the founder and CEO of Blockchain. He's one of the pioneers in blockchain in Indonesia, and I know him personally for the last 4 years. So he's joining us here from Indonesia. Plus, we have Heslin Kim, who's the Director of Business Development APAC from Tokeny. He's joining us as well. Then we have Henrik, who's the General Partner at Blockchain Valley Ventures. And of course, we have a very interesting join up in the last moment. That's Fabian. And Fabian is here to join with us. He's the founder and chief architect of Luxo. So, Melanie, I'll hand over the stage to you. Please take this on. Thank you.
Yes. So very excited to be here with everyone. It's a fabulous conference so far. Enjoyed some of the sessions already. Thanks again for inviting us all. We're here today to discuss tokenized business models and give a little introduction in the beginning. But of course, we are very excited to hear from all of the great panelists. What's your take on this topic? What exciting business models you have already discovered and where you see the future heading to? And so I would love to start with Roberto, because I think with your experience in technology, I think you started already with being 6 years old, very early on. You got this passion for technology and started coding. Additionally, you're very, very long in the blockchain space and have this also created and founded this amazing association, Blockchain Zoo. I would really like to hand over to you to give maybe a brief introduction in what does it mean, tokenized business models, and how someone can get started thinking and evaluating this.
Okay, thank you very much for the introduction. Thank you, everybody else, and the organization for having me here. So, the history of the information age that we are in started in the late 50s, 1950s, and it went through some stages. The first stage is surely the digitalization of information. So books became digital text, music or radio became digital, television became digital, recording went from videotapes to DVDs, and everything became digital. And this has been the first step in the information age. The second step is start to be decentralization and the control of these digital assets that are being created in the first phase of the information age. If we think this, if I have an MP3 song and I give a copy of the MP3 song to each of you is going to have the copy of the MP3 song. But thanks to blockchain, if I have a Bitcoin, I give Bitcoin to somebody else, I don't have the Bitcoin anymore. So the achievement of a blockchain in this phase of the information age is the capacity to give a singularity, uniqueness to digital asset in the digital world, which is an incredible achievement, because in the beauty of making things decentralized and digital, there was the issue of making them easy to copy and repeat and bring them around. It's not that the blockchain stop the copying, but can give legal ownership to a single unit of these copies. Let's say in a painting, in art, for example, if a painters make a painting and I purchase the painting, it's mine, it's clearly mine. People can take picture of this painting, but the original is single, is one, and is mine. In the digital aspect, somebody make a digital piece of art, everybody that copies the one and the zeros is exactly the same piece of art. In the moment that I can create a digital twin, what is called, so a representation of this piece of art in the blockchain where singularity of digital asset can be achieved, I can say that digital art belongs to me. So everybody can enjoy a copy of it, but when people want to see who's the owner of it, they see there is me, and there is no way to falsify the ownership of art. At this point, I can even sell it. I can transfer ownership to somebody else for money, And while everybody can enjoy the copy of this art, the owner now and the rightful owner is going to be this other person. So in this way, the blockchain creates the possibility to have a unique asset that is digitally represented and can represent a twin in the real world, if we want. In this way, we end up being able to tokenize things. Between the past project that I did, the very interesting things as tokenizing a horse, because race horses can cost millions of dollars per se, but because the paperwork to manage the ownership of the horse is complex, maximum 20 people can be owner of a racehorse. But with the blockchain and managing a way to be compliant with the regulators, it's possible to only have $100 worth of a racehorse per se. And this is one beautiful example of the application of the tokenization that the blockchain allow in a real case that is very far from IT or information technology, which is racehorses, right? Horses for race. So that's I think, a good intro to make everybody understand what tokenization may mean in practical aspect. In this moment, there is honestly decentralization and tokenization and representation in the digital world of things that are part of the real world, the second important phase of the information age that we're living in.
I think you summarized extremely well also this aspect of asset tokens or also security tokens. As we have also Fabian here with us, who is a co-inventor of the ERC20 standard together with Vitalik Buterin. It would be interesting. That, of course, gave a huge push and boost for new tokenized business models with Ethereum allowing or integrating this standard. What additionally also to the asset or security based token models, how to define the case of utilities or utility tokens where you can really incentivize and create or create economic incentives for more participants. We can't hear you.
Yeah, so sorry, I was muted. So it's an interesting one. We have seen basically since 2000 and when I proposed the ERC20 was in November 2015, and since then we have seen an explosion. Obviously, the initial use cases were fundraising, and I think as much as the tokenization and the possibilities which come with it, and especially in the times where we are, which is kind of like a very early Wild West phase still, it is a two-sided sword, right? So it enables a lot of new innovation, and you can basically rethink what tokenization, what tokens can be, what they can represent, and we are inventing a lot of really new use cases, and we actually don't really even know what will be the real values of the future. But at the same time, also it allows, because of that uncertainty, it allows people to create tokens, and then it's really unclear what exactly the value is of those. And I think we have seen a lot of this in the past, and that's kind of like a little bit of trickiness here to figure out what is what. At the same time, it does make us question what is value in the first place, and what has value in the first place. We all can agree, okay, money has value because there's a government, they say it's valid, everybody accepts it, and that's valuable. But through tokenization and through the blockchain, and exactly like how Roberto said, the singularity of it and the ability to transfer is exactly what makes us completely rethink money or rethink value. And my belief is actually the more you think about it, the more you get to the point that really on the end, it all comes down to reputation. And we can now make reputation very visible because of this singularity and this transferability and this ability to really know it happened correctly. So, for example, if I'm having a reputation on Twitter, you cannot 100% be certain, first, that the followers are real that are following you, and second, what kind of weight they have, right? It just represents numbers. At the same time, if Twitter would go away, all of its value goes away, or all of your reputation goes away. And I think tokenization will play a very big role in those fields where it's not necessarily monetarily, but where it's more towards reputation, more towards status signaling in a way, and showcasing what communities and interests you're interested in. And that in the return can give you access to things, because now we have these tokens. They can represent basically the ability to vote on something, or the ability to join something, or to be part of something. So we have this programmability, right? Bitcoin is programmable money, more so actually our tokens, because they can really nicely interact with other smart contracts. And that's when it becomes very interesting, and where we will completely basically change the way of how we see money at first. I mean, it might be that in 5 to 10 years, nobody cares about holding money, but everybody cares about holding all kinds of assets that, make your life more interesting and more accessible.
Heinrich, I mean, you're from the Crypto Valley. You're also one of the founders and partners in a blockchain fund. It would be very interesting to hear. We heard from Roberto tokenizing horses, tokenizing art. What exactly are you looking into currently? Is it definitely more the security, the asset based token business model?
Well, I mean, look, this topic, as you say, yeah, I'm here.
I think. Is it possible we lost Heinrich here?
No, we can hear him.
No, I'm here.
I can't hear Heinrich.
But I'm here, so if the rest can hear
Heinrich?
me, here we go.
I can hear him.
It's working for Heinrich.
Okay. So I just started
to... I cannot hear him. Can you all hear him?
Yeah.
Yes.
When I say something. Okay, very good. Then, Melanie, thanks a lot. Yeah, digital assets and security tokens. Maybe this is today not really a market, but it's what many people look forward to, and it's really it's tokens that represent an asset. So this could be shares in a company, shares in houses, shares in horses, art, but it could also be in the same category. It's when you have, for example, loans that you tokenize, yeah, and we look currently at all of these categories, because I really believe that all of these categories will come. We still need some of the market infrastructure for it, so that it really becomes an accessible and visible business for everybody. But what are the big benefits in my view of it? One is accessibility. I mean, today, not for everybody, shares in companies or as Roberto said, horses, whatever, are accessible. And with tokenized ownership in companies and real estate, even very, very small transactions are possible. So even, let's say, with a $10, $50, $100, you can own a piece of something. And you can own it through very easy access through your wallet on your mobile phone. And sometimes we don't see that. I'm living in a very rich country like Switzerland, but in many countries in the world, you don't have this access. So accessibility and smaller amounts will create a new market for ownership of shares and ownership of other assets. And this is also, for me, one of the promises really of blockchain. It's making smaller transactions possible. Second is that you can enhance a business model. So can you imagine you have a business with a lot of consumers and clients, and you could make your clients co-owners of your business. So you have a B2C business model. You have maybe an app that million people or 100,000 people like. With a tokenized share of your business, you can offer them a part of the ownership. And so you make your consumers part of your co-owners, which I think is a very powerful idea for B2C businesses. And then last but not least, when you digitize shares, so you have tokenized shares or tokenized pieces of art, you can add additional functionality to the token. And that is simply not possible in today's world where share certificates are printed on paper and held by somebody in a big treasury case. And you could add functionality that fits to your business model. So, for example, you can people that own tokens in your business, you add to them a functionality. The more tokens you own, the better status you have in my business. So you create some kind of VIP loyalty system on top of your shares. Or if it's a loan, a tokenized loan, then you might have payments of interest every minute, every second. And that doesn't exist today. And that would be cool. And I believe very much also in these tokenized loans, because small and medium business will always have difficulties to communicate their worth to a big token audience. But a tokenized loan with a good interest rates, everybody will be interested to.
Very interesting perspective, and of course very pro for the security token model. And I see there was definitely in the last, I would say 1.5 years, a shift of interest from utility tokens towards security tokens. I'm very keen to hear also, Heslin, because you're wearing so many different hats. On the one hand, you're also director of business development of an exchange. So you process a lot of projects that are applying for a listing, and you're also part of Tokeni, which is also delivering or working on infrastructure technology and framework. So what is your take on where the future is heading to?
I've been in the security token space for about 2.5, 3 years now, and really seen it develop significantly from the ICO scene, and especially being involved in blockchain, having it be correlated to the ICO models that we saw previously. I think that what we've moved into now is a differentiation between the type of assets that are approaching us as client base to utilize this kind of service. I think it has to stem from even the naming of what this process is. So calling it a security token offering, people generally think it's a better way to raise funds. Maybe some way similar to the ICO days, where funds can be generated, almost effortlessly in massive amounts. But really, what we've seen from our perspective, and the types of businesses that are really gathering momentum, and I think standing as reputable assets to make as case studies for this market, are really revolving around existing businesses that are already generating revenue, that are not looking for pre-seed or seed type of funding, but actually doing their Series A, B, or C. They've already got an existing investor base. I think that's a very important component. But we are seeing a pretty wide array of security tokens and types of asset classes that are being tokenized now. So anywhere from IP, patents, to carbon credits, to commodities. One of our most recent successful STOs, and just a bit about Tokeny. So far, we've done about 27 billion USD in tokenization over the last 1.5 years in partnership with Euronext, as alluded to. And really, what we've seen is a massive push towards the secondary markets, the types of commodities that are being tokenized. For instance, the most successful one recently was tokenizing 90,000 ounces of unmined gold. 2 publicly listed companies in Canada and one in Indonesia, basically selling off redeemable tokens with a 6 to 9 month redemption, selling at 37% discount to spot at the moment. So I think there's a really interesting play that we're seeing involved in these types of models, but it's definitely not leaning towards startups, towards lower priced models. I think that I agree with the ideal vision is in line with what Heinrich said, to eventually get to the space where assets can be traded in this fractionalized way at much smaller degrees. But the obstacle that we're really seeing to have that go live and really have that happen and occur in the market is the fact that the legal fees involved in creating a traditional security are significantly higher. So even the bond issuance that's generally limited to at least $10 to $20 million is quite difficult to tokenize these days because of the legal fees that are involved, anywhere from $50,000 to $200,000. It's not feasible to do a bond issuance, below 10 million. So what we're really trying to do is both streamline the tokenization process, but also improve legacy processes in other verticals, like the legal systems, to automate the subscription agreements, and to basically provide digitalization of the contracts. There's a huge amount of ecosystem that needs to be in place to eventually get to the point where assets can be fractionalized to significant degrees. And, maybe we can use these in a utility token fashion, but much later down the line. I think right now the use cases, proof of concepts, and actual security tokens that are going to gain momentum for the market are going to be traditional securities and probably very large scale assets ranging at least 50 million to upwards of $1 billion. And we'll see that taking place over the next 2 or 3 years. And as mentioned, yes, we are working, and our LPs are Euronext Stock Exchange and the Euronext Group. We've seen a lot of interest globally from different stock exchanges, and I think this points to the direction that things are headed. It's not there yet. There's still a lot to be built out, but we're seeing major moves, like recently what we saw with the DTCC announcing that they're going to tokenize and put all of their registries on blockchain, both with Project Whitney and Project Ion. So it's a lot going on, but I think it stems much further than just. I think I'd love to see tokenized racehorses. I'd like to hear more about that. But in our daily activities, we're seeing the necessity to have almost in line with the exact models for traditional securities in the space. So,
Yeah, if I can add something to this, what I find really interesting is that, I think one of the big blockers of security token space itself, and I'm one of the authors of the 1400 standard, which kind of tried to standardize this security token approach. And it's more like right now, I like a little bit of a standard wars there. But I think the problem is why this hasn't taken off yet, because a lot of people are talking about security tokens since many years, really. And I think why it hasn't taken off yet is, on the one hand, the cost, like you said, it's very expensive to do some. This should be ideally, this is the pay-per-go issue. And on the other hand, the biggest problem is actually the liquidity and the missing exchanges. So we have a lot of crypto exchanges. We have a lot of trading going on in the crypto market. But if you check that for a security token, there's basically almost nothing existing. So the moment it's great to tokenize something, but if you can't trade it, what's the point? And in fact, all of the existing exchanges we have, like Nasdaq, like Börse Frankfurt and so on, they all could technically take those security tokens because they already are licensed exchanges, and it should be fairly easy for them to take them on. And it's interesting that this hasn't happened yet, and that kind of everybody talks about the security tokens, but without the exchanges, there's no life. Without no life, there's no it's not a market. And that's really, in my opinion, the biggest barrier of why it hasn't taken off yet.
I would add a little additional barrier, which is some of these use cases probably do not need blockchain or wouldn't need a token for it, an own native token. So this is for me sometimes the question when I'm looking into security asset-based business models. Could they not also find another way? If it's about micro payments, could they not use existing Ethereum, Bitcoin, whatever to exchange value? And therefore, I think these are the two parts. One, you don't have the liquidity, you don't have the exchanges yet, and sometimes it's really questionable if they really need to use blockchain technology. But are there any, I mean, decentralized, we are also fascinated still, I think, about Bitcoin and how decentralized it is and how it grew, how the network grew over years, kind of by itself and by the excitement of the community. For me, the question is, what kind of decentralized tokenized business models have you seen out there, not securities, which got you excited, or did you come across something lately, something new? Roberto or anyone?
I mean, I guess maybe if I can start. I mean, I guess what we can really all say is that DeFi is really exciting because it's kind of the first real use case for tokens that has not only like proven useful, but also taken off in terms of adoption. DeFi, decentralized finance, is very interesting because it's its ability to reinvent finance as it works right now on a complete trustless basis. So it is definitely the most interesting, token use cases so far. But I think we will see a lot of the other use cases that, for example, I'm aiming at with Luxo, which are more in the lifestyle direction, which are more for ordinary people, which are more for non-technical people. Because one of the biggest problems why blockchain hasn't taken off yet is because it's really, I mean, I love that saying. I heard that in some kind of like comedy show, but really blockchain is everything you don't understand about money with everything you don't understand about computers combined. Perfectly. And if you have that and then you go to normal people and say, hey, it's cool, then basically everybody thinks like, okay, how do I use it? It's no problem. Just go download this wallet, write these 12 keys down and really don't forget it. And then go to this exchange and do this. 5 steps later, you're in blockchain. Later in time. So that should not be the experience, right? And ideally, the technology, because it gives a lot of benefits, it gives more benefits than anything we had before. It is exactly like Roberto said. It's the next step in the internet. We have the internet of information exchange, and now we're moving towards the internet of value exchange. And the ability to have unique digital assets, objects, items, units, that's never have been there before. So that's a tremendous new paradigm. But it needs to be easy, and we shouldn't show people the engine when they want to sit in the car, right? We should sit them in the seat and show them, hey, look here, pedal, steering wheel, there you go. And then that's what will create a complete different level of adoption. And I think also a little bit going away from this finance is really important in order to get to the mainstream, because all of these finance things are great for like finance people or traders. Everybody else, like, they are really like hard to understand, and so that's why these kind of new use cases.
I have my 5 cents, actually my 0.05 token to offer to this discussion. So, first of all, the best use case for token, in my opinion now, is the adoption from the gaming industry. Video games, mostly those that we play on our cell phone or iPad, usually have the diamonds, the golds that people collect. And those have an actual value because those companies sell it for money. And they're being always a victim of attacks because it's easy to manipulate an architecture that is not very well done when we come to video games. They take care about the graphic design, but not very secure when it comes to the management of their finance internal to the video game. A lot of gaming companies are adopting blockchain to create a token related to their gold or diamonds, etc., that the player have in their game. And this is one first use case that I think has seen a huge hidden adoption, because people have no idea that this is happening behind the game that they're playing. And this is the correct things, because this is the engine, not the beauty of the car that is outside, as it was just suggested. And another thing, somebody gave me this small analogy that I find very nice and useful. So think about this. When the email came out, and we had a fax machine next to us, thinking to send a message via email was a headache, because we had to turn on the computer, because computers were usually off unless we use them. We had to open the email program software, which take time to load. We had to connect to the internet, means that we need to pay attention. Nobody's on the phone at the house, and then wait to something like this. Write a message, send this email, and then make a phone call to the other party to make sure that they receive the email, because it wasn't guaranteed. Right? On the other side, the fax machine, I take a piece of paper, I write by hand what I want, I put it inside. If it's going inside, means it's coming outside on the other side. There was no doubt. And people would think email will never succeed. Until there was the fact that the email can have attachment. I cannot put an attachment in a fax. And at this point, I was forced to use the email, and slowly the mail became easier. Now, sending a fax is a headache for most of us because nobody has a fax machine anymore. The use of blockchain and tokens is going to go through the same pattern. Now is a headache to use, it's complex, and there are much easier ways to do the thing. Until people see a very, very effective use case that make them want to have this, and automatically it's going to become easier and more accessible compared to those systems that is going to become a headache. That's my opinion.
So it was such a vibrant discussion that I nearly forgot that we are getting to the end already. Thank you so much for all your insights. And Roberto, I definitely see the use case with gaming, especially with a teenage generation that is kind of leading or are crypto secret allies. My son, 9 years old, already wants his crypto tokens rather than his pocket money every month. So definitely they are pushing us to the next phase. Thank you, everyone, for participating and giving us these amazing insights.
Thank you very much, Melanie, for taking care of the panel. Thank you for moderating. And thank you, everybody. Roberto, Heslin, Heinrich, Fabian, thank you so much for being part of the session today. Thank you. Take care. Thank you from Indonesia.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will now move forward to the next panel. So you can switch over to the next room or we'll automatically shift you to the next panel. See you there.